Shabbat Shalom TEM. I am zooming in from Silverthorne, Colorado. Very lucky to be in this setting, and I'm really glad to be here. So, since being in Colorado these past 2 weeks, I've been thinking a lot about water. So last week I visited one of my favorite places in the world, which is Camp Vermont in the Rockies, and it's located on this ranch deep in the Pike National Forest, about 40 minutes from any kind of paved road in central Colorado. And as you drive toward camp and see the whole landscape around camp, about an hour in any direction, all you see is burnt forest. You see these huge trunks of trees that are charred black and laying all over the mountainsides and the valleys and streams next to the roads like matchsticks. In the past 10 years, I've been able to see shrubs and grasses come up through the trees, and it's really special to see the forest regenerate. The reason for this burn scar is called the Hayman Fire, which happened in June of 2002 and was one of the largest wildfires in Colorado history. It burned over 138,000 acres and 133 homes. Thousands of people were evacuated, and you could see smoke every corner of the state, including states surrounding Colorado. Of course, forest fires are natural, but what is not natural is how dry the American West has become in the past few decades. Fires are burning hotter and faster and drier every year, and there's billions and billions of dollars put toward firefighters trying to put out these fires with little success. We've also been using groundwater unsustainably for the past 100 years, and it's essentially disappearing. Our camp, which is this little bitty startup, was established in the scar of this fire, the Hayman Fire, and we had another fire in 2017 in which the main building of the camp burned down in an electric fire. Because of this fire and this sort of landscape of dryness all around us, we were always thinking about water in so many different ways. In the 6 days that I was at camp, 2 staff members were hospitalized for dehydration. Thank God both are fine now. And even though Colorado this year has emerged from a decade-long drought, it has been in the 90s every day with not a drop of rain, and the sunsets are hazy with smoke because there's 2 wildfires burning to the north of here. This is an increasingly global problem, which is exacerbated by climate change, where water is flooding the places that people don't want it to flood, harming them and their property, or water is absent, or there's not enough of it where people need it to be. The narrative of our Torah takes place in the Midbar in the desert, a place with very little water. And so it's no wonder that so many key moments in our Torah happen in water, next to water, at a well, or different sort of events are spurred by a famine, which is caused by drought. In this week's Torah portion, Chukat, we can see it as sort of a narrative about the Jewish people and water. Water, in Hebrew, mayim, is mentioned 22 times in this parsha in different capacities. Water as purifier, water as ritual object, water as geopolitics, water as safety, water as prayer, and water as an emotion to displace, displacing our emotion onto water. The portion begins with God's command to mix water with the ashes of a red cow, a para aduma, for ritual purification, after coming in contact with a corpse. So the verbs lechabes, to wash clothing or to launder, and letaher, to richly purify, are only possible with water. So we require water, in both the biblical context and today, to be clean and to present ourselves with kavod before God. The moment that follows these instructions for ritual purification with the water and the ashes is unfortunately the death of our foremother Miriam. Our Midrash interprets this juxtaposition of Miriam's death following these instructions for the ashes and the water as an indicator of Miriam's righteousness. The verse following her death states that the well which provided the Israelites water dries up. The verse reads, Lo haya ma'im la'edah, v'yikahalu al Moshe v'al Aharon. The community was without water, and they joined against Moses and Aaron. Our commentator Rabbeinu Bachya responds, the water which the people had enjoyed all these years was due to the merit of Miriam, who had stood by watching what would happen to her infant brother when he was put in a basket in the reeds at the edge of the river Nile. God had rewarded her for that act of kindness by making her the provider of water for Moses' people. The people had not appreciated this, had not appreciated her, until the well ceased with Miriam's death. Here, water flows with generosity from a sacred woman's lifetime and ends with her death. Water quenched the thirst of the Israelites because of Miriam's merit. And I think, like Rabbeinu Bachya mentioned, of Miriam's bravery, we see the verse in Exodus, Vatitatsev Miriam, she stationed herself along the banks of the Nile to see what would befall her brother. She watched as Pharaoh's wife, Pharaoh's daughter, drew him up from the Nile, and then she went up to her and secured her mom, Moshe's mom, as his wet nurse. It was as if Miriam was steadying the waters that might have killed her brother with her presence and her bravery. And the water flowed and quenched the thirst of all the Israelites because of her. And following her death, things take a turn for the worse, as grief and drought hit the congregation. When people are without water, they get cranky and angry. They're scared. So the people quarrel with Moses, complaining, "There's no water to drink." And Moses and Aaron famously strike the rock for water. But Moses does it in the wrong way. He's too eager, too stressed out by the demands of the congregation, and he strikes the rock without speaking to it first. God lets the waters spring forth, but Moses and Aaron are famously told they will not enter the promised land after this mistake, which we think is so small. Was it their mistrust in God to supply them with something so elemental as water? The waters in this pasuk are called Mei Meribah, waters of strife. It's interesting that this moment, the moment of strife, the Mei Meribah, is the one that's most remembered in this parsha, but the parsha ends in a very different way. God says to Moses in the last few verses, Asof et ha'am ve'etna lahem mayim. Gather the people so that I can give them water. And in response to this, the Israelites sing an exultant song of joy. Az yashir Yisrael tashira hazot, ali be'er enula. The Israelites sing this song, "Spring up, O well, sing to it." I had never heard this verse before reading it a couple days ago, but it strikes me as this very special and sacred moment. It's like Az Yashir Yisrael. It's like Shirat Hayam with the splitting of the sea. And it reminded me of the joy and the appreciation that people feel when they know they're going to be safe and provided for. One of the most theologically important moments in the Jewish year to me is the Geshem prayer, which we say at Shmini Atzeret, right after Sukkot, transitioning from the dry season to the wet season. And we bless Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hagashem. Please God, the provider of rain and wind, give us water, libracha velo klala, for blessing and not a curse, for plenty and not for famine, for life and not for death. And I think this verse comments on the precariousness that so many people thought of when they thought of water and God providing for them. We have taps, we have reservoirs, we have a whole infrastructure for water today, but our ancestors did not. The ups and downs of this parsha reflect the ups and downs of the Jewish people have had throughout our whole Torah with water and with God. Water, like God, can be almost anywhere. In the skies, in the rustling leaves, in canyons, in our hearts. Like the divine spirit, whatever you believe in, sometimes we take water for granted. We don't even realize that it's there, quietly making life happen in myriad ways. And sometimes we're struck with gratitude for water's ability to comfort us. A warm bath, a lake or a river that brings us comfort, a cold glass of water on a hot day, and that special ability to cleanse New York City of that hot garbage smell in the summer and make everything clean and green and lush. My friend Noah Kaplan is a poet and wrote this poem about water, which I'm going to share an excerpt of. We are water, have always been, taking shape of what holds us, carving these containers out of wind and rock and of ourselves, shifting shape sand spaces with the tides. Water has direction, seamless and subtle in the way it loves, harsh in the way it hates. It cannot be breathed. Water can be everything. It can give life and destroy life. It can be forceful or gentle. It can help a community survive and thrive. Or, if there's not enough, it can pit a community against each other. So if water sustains us, how do we treat water in return? This Shabbat, I invite you to think deeply about water and connect with water in whatever way is meaningful to you. You can look out at the Hudson or the East River, swim in a pool or a natural body of water, take a bath, drink a glass of water, boil water for tea or food. Whatever way we interact with water, I hope it is nourishing and life-giving. May we see water as our ally and our life-giving force. May we also stand with stewards of water, particularly indigenous people, who are protecting water where it is defiled. Polluted water harms every form of life, and it is a direct sign of our disrespect for all life forms. We bring kavod, respect, to all that water does for us, and remember also the miracles that the Holy Blessed One did for us, drawing water out of rocks and splitting the sea so that our ancestors could survive. As the sky here continues to get hazier every day with smoke from the fires burning to the north, I hope that we can be thankful each day for the innumerable miracles of water and the spirit that keeps it moving through us. Shabbat Shalom.